All right, recording started. So welcome along, guys, to the October webinar. We haven't had one for a couple of months. Main reason is not much news when it's been pouring with rain non-stop. And we thought we'd sort of wait until we got closer to the spring, put out the owner survey this week, and it was overwhelming that people wanted to hear a bit more about what it takes to be a jockey. So I thought, okay, who does track work for us? Who might be of interest? And well, we've got two Group 1 winning jockeys here. So welcome, firstly, Patrick Moloney.
Howdy, guys.
And Lachlan King. Hey, Lockie.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
And obviously we've got Matt the Cock there. Robbie's actually on a flight at the moment, but welcome, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Corey, and thank you, Pat and Lockie, for taking the time to have a chat to us.
Yep. And Matt, I might start with you, Matt. What's it like having these two guys around in the mornings?
Yeah, it's a pleasure, actually, Corey. They very hardworking guys and do a lot of work behind the scenes. And we have a good relationship with them, which we've built up over the last couple of months. And they're both very capable riders. So we return the favor by putting them on race day. And so far, they've been delivering. And it's been an enjoyable couple of months working with them.
All right, and I'll start with yourself, Paddy, but obviously I mentioned the Group 1 winning jockeys, but Rock and Horse actually beat Halvorsen, so it wasn't our happiest day when it was a happy day for you, but just looking at those photos for both of you must be amazing. But how did you personally get involved in becoming a jockey? What led you to this journey to Group 1 glory?
Basically family. Obviously I was born and bred into the industry. I think I'm fourth generation. All my dad's a horse trainer, also uncle, my grandfather and then great-grandfather was also a trainer. They started out at Warrnambool, eventually made their way down to the Big Smoke, trained mainly out of Caulfield, and now we're at Cranbourne. But yeah, obviously me mum and dad shacked up, and mum's an equestrian girl, so she was heavy into her equestrian and one-day eventing and show jumping and that. So I threw down to the smaller side. Mum's a midget, and so threw down to her side, and I was small enough and light enough to be a jockey, basically. And obviously, Dad being a trainer, I was born around the horses back in the Epsom days. It sort of evolved from there. I grew up riding ponies. Had a pony as soon as I could walk, basically, and learned to, as much as kids learn to ride a bike, I learned to ride a horse, basically. I went around, parted me around to all the gymkhanas as a kid and sort of progressed from there. And I had a need for speed and loved the racing. Loved going to the races and taking a day off school and going with Dad to the races and that. And just used to get every day off that I could and afternoon off that I could to go to the races. And whenever they were racing at Caulfield when I was growing up, I used to pack my bike in the back of my dad's ute and ride it around to the barriers at the start of every race and that, and sort of just got the bug for being a jockey, really. And I finished school, finished year 12, and I thought stuff uni. I really wanted to be a jockey, and I was still small enough and light enough. So I went down that path and, haven't looked back since.
And 605 career wins. I think it might be 605 or 606. You got one yesterday, I saw. But you ride, it says on racing.com you ride at 50 kilograms, but what's your comfortable weight? What do you prefer to ride at?
Yeah, look, I haven't, that's probably a bit of, I haven't ridden 50 kilos. I think I rode that once in a Caulfield Cup back probably 6 years ago. I don't think I could do 50 kilos unless I chopped off one of a leg right now. But my minimum probably now is about 52 kilos. That's where I can sort of comfortably get down to for a big event. But usually I sort of walk around probably about 56 kilos. Can ride 54 every sort of Saturday and Wednesday meetings on a regular basis. But yeah, that involves a lot of training for sure. This weekend I was supposed to be riding 52 kilos and I had to prep myself for that. Basically, do a gym sesh of a morning for over between an hour to an hour and a half, and then have a sweat in the spa of a night time, and not much to eat in between. So it requires more so a lot of mental strength, and I'm sure Kingy will reiterate the exact same as me. But requires a lot of mental strength, especially to last that extra 10 minutes on the push bike, or do that extra K running, or sit in that spa for an extra half an hour. It requires more mental strength than physical for sure, and that's what I think is a great asset of us jockeys.
And Lockie, I'll jump to yourself, but obviously, how did you get involved in racing as well?
Look, my story's quite similar to Paddy's. My family's been in racing for a long time, and but in some ways it's quite different. I didn't ride a horse till I was 17 years old, so basically my dad wanted to sort of keep me away from racing as long as possible, and I basically went to Xavier as a kid, and he gave me every opportunity I wanted to choose every path I wanted to, and didn't force me into the game at all. But when school work experience came around when I was about 17, I chose to go to. He chose to send me to Gerald Egan in Mansfield, and he'd obviously been the master of some pretty successful jockeys in the past. And I went up there, and I really disliked it for the first week or two. Definitely wasn't what I was expecting, but obviously I went back to school for a couple of months, and then I gave another try, and since then I've been in the racing industry. So yeah, in some ways it's quite a similar story to what Paddy said, but in others it's very different. I was quite a normal kid, 5 years ago, so a lot's happened in 5 years anyway.
Yeah, and still quite young, Lockie, but 235 career wins, including Johnny Get Angry, and obviously he retired today.
Yeah, it was a sad day, but it was a long time coming, I think. But yeah, the horse gave me a great thrill, and it was an amazing journey to be a part of. One that was a little bit surprising that came up. Paddy was actually booked for the ride before me, so I necked him for the ride in COVID. But look, I'm very grateful for the opportunity that came up, and looking back on it, it's going to be with me forever.
And you talked about Paddy maybe having that ride, but I might cross to you, Matt. How hard is it booking jockeys? And what's the process, I guess, for those watching?
Yeah, well, it's every case is slightly different. So on horses that Paddy and Lockie are probably regular riders on, we'll just let them know in advance when we're thinking of running the horse next, so that they can plan ahead and make sure that they're available. When you're trying to book, each jockey has an agent, so you go through an agent generally. And when you're trying to book some of the big names, you try and also let them know, even long before the nominations actually come out on the digital platforms, you try and make sure you let them know that you're intending on running a horse there, and you would really like this jockey to ride the horse. And if they come back to you and say they're not available for whatever reason, you move on to the next best that you think will be most suitable to that horse. And if all else fails, you wait till day of acceptances and see who's going to the meeting and try and pick the best available jockey. But for us, we do like to reward the guys that come in and ride a bit of track work, because, as you know, in the racing industry, staff shortages is a big problem, and any help you can get in the mornings is really appreciated. And when guys like Lockie and Paddy that have ridden many winners and Group 1 winners come in the mornings, it's advantageous to us to get their feedback in the mornings as well. So we're grateful for that, and we try and reward that with some decent rides on race day.
Yeah, and Paddy, I guess from a jockey's perspective, is it similar? How do you guys go about booking the rides and not upsetting anyone?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a fine balance. Obviously, if you're doing a work for a particular stable and team, you like to build a nice rapport, and in doing work for them, you hope to gain rides out of it. And Robbie and Matt are terrific with that. Not so much a lot of other stables. It's a bit cutthroat, but yeah, obviously we have both Lockie and I. We have a jockey manager who manages our race rides, and we depend a lot upon him because we are racing pretty much every day, 7 days a week, that they look after us and we'll feed information back to them, whether it's trials, we trial a horse and say, we'd like to stick with this horse. Can you get in contact with Matt or Robbie, etc. Or if I galloped a horse, I would then say to my manager, hey, look, this horse will gallop. Let's find out where it's going next. But yeah, obviously it's a fine balance. Sometimes you get offered 2 rides in one race, which gives you options, but then you make one connection's happy, but then the others are not happy that you don't take their ride. So it's sort of, I'm a big believer in sort of loyalty in this game. A lot of it's sort of gone a bit to the wayside and that, but loyalty goes a long way. And I think if somebody's been backing you for a long time, you'll generally stick with them when it's a line ball call, going with their horse rather than another stable's horse. Yeah.
And Lachie, I guess the big question is, how much of an advantage is it for you as a jockey if you've sat on the horse before in track work?
Oh, massive. I've certainly found it since riding a lot of work from Matt and Robbie that you gain that little bit of like a bit of an advantage. I feel like when we ride a horse we've never ridden race day, we only get 2 or 3 minutes to get a gauge on how the horse feels underneath you on the way to the barriers. And even if it's just sitting on the horse during the week or trying the horse, it's crucial and it gives you a massive advantage when you're in a position like a race, to know when to push the button or to know when the horse is obviously traveling better than you think, or it's obviously off the bridle. But yeah, it's really good, and that's why I enjoy going down to Matt and Robbie's twice a week because it gives me a good idea of how the horse is going. And yeah, like I said, I've seen the improvement in my riding since being able to do that.
Yeah, and obviously, for those following the webinar, if you just go to the Q&A button, if you've got any questions, throw them in there, and I'm happy to try and bring them up as we go through. Paddy, just with I've got their media training. How much media training do you do through the academy and that type of thing as you grow up, or is it a lot of it down to natural how you present, I guess?
Yeah, the apprentice program that they've got going now is fantastic. Obviously, Kingy's just come out of it in the last year, and I'm probably about 3 or I don't know, about 4 years out of it or whatever. But they do have media training when we go to apprentice school once a month. We do lessons with a media coach and stuff like that. But then basically we get fairly well exposed to a media, from the day we started riding. So we get a lot of practice, even though it's in front of the racing.com screens and stuff like that. We get a lot of practice, and basically then it just comes down to just, natural instincts and basically watching for me starting out, it was watching the top hoops and how they spoke to connections and how they spoke in front of the camera and how they express themselves basically, and were able to communicate not only to horse people but to people that don't have a lot of knowledge about racing, and be able to give them a good understanding of how the race went or how their horse feels and etc. So now it just becomes down to a bit of what, basically 10 years of being in the saddle and exposure behind the camera and doing little gigs here and there in terms of public speaking. So that's put both Lachie and I in good stead.
Yeah, and Lachie, what would a normal week look like in general for yourself?
Look, I try and get down to cram it on a Monday. I find Mondays, especially for the stable, is a really important day because it gives me a day that I can ride both gallops and trials, and it's good exposure, and I get to ride a handful of horses. So Mondays is a good day for me because it fits in well with my schedule. My dad's recently taken out a trainer's license, and with the staff issues in Victoria, I try and help him out as much as I can. He's got a growing team, so I try and dedicate 2 days a week with him. And then obviously a Thursday I pop down to Matt's and I need myself with a couple of free days where if I need to gallop a horse or do trials somewhere, I can be flexible. So I'm pretty flexible with my days that I work. Me and my manager, speak every day, and we try and suffice everyone's needs.
And Paddy, pretty similar?
Yeah, pretty similar. I'm down at Cranbourne probably 4 times a week. That's my main base. I do a lot of work for a lot of Cranbourne stables, and Robbie and Matt's the one. Like Mondays trials down at Cranbourne, and then Tuesdays main gallop morning. Usually there for my dad and uncle, the Moloneys, and then go to Mick Price and Michael Kent Juniors after that. And then Thursday in at Robbie and Matt's, and Friday morning I can usually be at Flemington for the jump outs, and then Saturday back at Cranbourne. Doing gallops for the old boy and Mick Price again. It's pretty relentless. I think Wednesday and Sunday's my only general day off, and early mornings.
And Lockie, who makes up your team? Who does all of your form and that type of thing leading into races?
Well, look, I do most of my form, but I've got a very handy dad that offers his expertise whenever I need it. So, look, I was raised probably a little bit different to everyone else in the fact that my dad, although form is a major part of racing, likes to ride the horse at the same time, and I feel like that's something that I've based my riding off. As you know, like form can go out the window 99% of the time anyway. So I try and prepare myself with 2 or 3 different options that I can obviously ride for. But like I said, Dad and my manager are my main two people in the team, and currently that's all that there is. I haven't got masseuses or dietitians or anything, but maybe down the track we can see.
Yeah, and obviously, Paddy, you mentioned you ride track work for a few stables, but I know you're riding Entremet on Saturday, and we can just see here how emotional you get when you ride for Griffiths to Cock.
Yeah, I just love riding winners from him. I think Matt or Robbie, when I had a bit of kickback in my eye, thought they'd try and manipulate it into me getting emotional, but we'll make the boys happy and believe that I cried for him when I rode a winner for him. I was just that time they put me on a fast one.
Yeah, and you're on there again. You're on there again soon. I think Saturday. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, we've booked Paddy Moloney for Saturday at Moonee Valley, and we'll bring the tissues in case he happens to win and needs a tissue in the number 1 box again.
Yeah, it's good to see manager's doing his job and kept me on the horse.
And the fish on Friday night as well. Paddy fishing.
Yeah, he's a lovely horse, and Matt would agree. I mean, he's been probably not the easiest horse to deal with in and around the stable. He's produced some quality trials leading up to his Friday night assignment. He's obviously the trial form is exceptional. The horse that finished second in behind his both trials, his preparation, has come out and won the Blue Sapphire and Grand Impact. So if the boy can bring the form on Friday night, he'd be right up for sure.
Yeah, we do worry, Matt, when our horses do well in trials, though, don't we? In recent weeks.
Yeah, there's no stake money in trials, but sometimes you can see when a horse is genuinely going well, and Fission is having his first run as a gelding, which is the most important thing with his preparation this time around. And he still ran well as a colt. He just had a lot of side shows. So I think even though he is trialing well, he'll definitely bring that work to the races.
Yeah. And Lockie, you've got a couple of nice ones. You've obviously got Frankie at the moment. That's flying. So Let's Be Frank Baby. And then you've also on Peshawar and Magical Land on Wednesday.
Yeah, look, Frankie, we haven't got to the bottom of her yet. She's quite a forward filly, but it's definitely up to the grade. She's been almost in front with a furlong to go the last two races in good company, and I just found that on this heavy ground at the moment we just haven't got to the bottom of her, and she's just probably not stretching out in it. But both Matt and I are of the same opinion that the filly will definitely improve on a better track. So with that in mind, we're hoping next start, we're going to get that good surface we can get, because she's got quite a good sprint, like we saw her when she ran second at Bendigo that day. But I think she'll let down on a better track. So hopefully the weather clears up and we can see the best of her.
And Matt, is Frankie going straight to the Oaks now, or has she got clean?
No, Corey, we think we'll go straight to the Oaks at this stage. She's had a lot of racing this campaign, and she's a type of filly that myself and Robbie think is going to be so much better in 6 to 12 months being by Frankel. She's just got a lot of upside, and whatever she's doing now, she's just doing on pure natural ability. So hopefully we get a dry day on Oaks Day. If it doesn't look like we're going to get a dry day, then we might divert and go to the Wakeful and decide from there. But at this stage, the plan is just to go straight into the Oaks.
Yep. And we'll go to Paddy. Promising horses that are exciting you. I know you don't sit on all of the horses, so for those listening, if your horse isn't named, it's because Paddy doesn't sit on every single one. But which horses excite you the most in the mornings when you're working with us?
There's a horse I think I've galloped him last two Thursday mornings. Thorondite, is it? I don't know, Matt. If you correct me if I'm wrong. Something like Thorondite or something like that. I think he goes okay, so his form speaks for himself.
Trontari,
that's it. Yeah, he seems to be going quite well in his work. Sat on him his last couple of mornings.
She's a filly, Paddy.
She's a filly.
So she's strong, obviously.
Yeah, no, she's been working great. That shows how much I jump on him and I bowl him around, and I just knew that its name started with a TH, and it's going. But Vision is definitely one who I've ridden him in all his starts to date. He's a little hot-headed boy. He's got so much energy, and I reckon he can make into a really nice horse if he just harnesses himself a little bit. Now being a gelding, I think he's got the capabilities of doing that. And I think hopefully if we can conserve his energy pre-race, I think he'll give it a fair hot shake on Friday night.
Yeah, and Lachie, ones that excite you?
Oh, look, other than the ones we've sort of already mentioned, I think Wednesday in the Geelong Classic, I think they've got 3 really nice, promising horses. I've had everything to do with all of them, but I think the Smokies Aberfeldy boy, I feel like he's always given me a really nice feel, this horse, and he's just not there yet. He's probably going to be a better horse in 12 months' time, but he's got a lot of ability, this horse, and he doesn't know what he's quite doing, but he's a dead set, great looking horse in the yard. He's got a long stride, and I feel like if he can, like Paddy says, sort of harness his natural ability, he's going to furnish into a really nice horse. So he's probably one I really like. And other than that, I'm riding some pretty nice horses at the moment. So yeah, really happy with the way things are going.
Is that your way of putting John McNeil under some pressure, Lachie? Because you're riding Peshwa.
Look, Pesh is good. He won good first up this prep. We took him to the Valley. He probably overdid it a little bit, but he's another horse. He's a big baby. He doesn't know what he's doing yet. So, like I said, that race, they've got three really competitive chances in it, and it's going to be interesting to see because all three of them are very capable horses.
Yeah. And Paddy, I guess obviously the two of you, for as long as I've been working for the stable in the last couple of years, you've both done track work for Matt and Robbie. How has the quality of horse changed in the time that you've been doing track work with us?
Yeah, I probably haven't been doing it as long as what Kingy's been doing it. I've sort of only since my main base shift from Caulfield to Cranbourne, I've started to chime in at Robbie's and Matt's. And basically, when I first started doing a little bit of work there, definitely it's the young crop coming through. When I was sort of first in there was a lot of babies and older horses that have met their mark, met their benchmark, so to speak. But it's as Kingy's alluded to, you can only see the next sort of wave is coming through. A lot of 3-year-olds starting to run around in the features for the team. There's 3 obviously in the Geelong Classic on Wednesday for the team, and then obviously we got another couple of 3-year-olds running around on Manikato Stakes Night and Cox Plate Day. So obviously the next wave coming through, the 3-year-olds and the 2-year-olds been really nicely sorted out by Robbie and Matt at the sales, and obviously I think it's an exciting time for the clientele at the stable, pressing forward, because I think it's going to be exciting times, and I think in probably a lot of them, as Kingy had alluded to as well, aren't the finished products yet, which is nice going forward, because in 12 months time, there's going to be a lot of cattle to work with in the team, and hopefully King and I are a part of that.
Yeah, and Lockie, I guess you've seen them since they were babies, some of them. How much has it improved in the time you've been there?
Yeah, look, I've been riding work for the stable for probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I don't know. And massive change. Obviously, when I first started there, we had like Paddy said, a few horses that sort of met their mark and just were competitive without winning. But in the last 6 to 8 months, I've found that they've found their way to where they belong, and if that's interstate or so forth, and we've replaced them with better purchases. And certainly in the 2-year-olds that have come through this wave, they're a lot forward. They know their job a lot more than the last crop, but we do have some nice 3-year-olds. I haven't ridden we've ridden a few 2-year-olds, but Matt has given me confidence saying the 2-year-old crop's pretty nice this year. So look, it's exciting times for the stable. They spent big at the sales, so they probably deserve to find a couple, in the next year or two anyway.
Yeah, have you sat on any 2-year-olds that have stood out, Lockie, or do you not sit on many of those?
Look, it's hard to say. It's always hard when you're a jockey, the hectic mornings, you're on and off each horse. Every now and then I try and get the names of them, but a lot of them go by their size name or their mother's name, so I wouldn't be able to reel off a few of them. I've only sat on a couple, but of the ones I've sat on, we've breezed up, 600 metres or so, and they've been pretty sharp. So we'll find out in the next month or so.
Yeah, and Matt, just on the 3-year-old crop, we're going at over 65% at the moment from that first crop that we bought in partnership. So over 65%, I think it's 65.5% wins to runners ratio, which is incredible. And it probably shows that those youngsters are going to be the flag bearers for years to come.
Yeah, Corey, well, it's just testament to, what myself and Robbie and the team around us, yourself and all our bloodstock agents set out to do when we started the partnership. We basically hit the refresh button with the yard and went to the sales with an aggressive mindset and built up the team. And the 3-year-olds that are going around now are only the tip of the iceberg, and the horses that are the flag bearers, and they're the ones we've put in 2 years of hard work, and we're only starting to see those benefits now. And it's nice that we've got the flow of the 2-year-olds right behind them, and then hopefully when we go to the sales this year, we can get that continuity going and get the flow really going each year, with the new horses coming in the yard, and then we'll build up a lot of strength and momentum.
Yeah, you mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago as well with the 2-year-olds that because we've had so much success with the 3-year-old crop, that you've held a few of them back just to make sure that they come to hand at the right time and in good weather.
Yeah, well, we've been trying to select the right horses for spring and select the right horses for summer as well. So a couple of the 3-year-olds, we brought them in, give them a jump out of 2, and then we thought that they weren't going to be ready for spring, so we just took the pedal off them and tucked them away, and they're back in the yard now, and they'll be jumping out in the next month or two, and come summertime they'll be ready to fire when the spring horses are having a little rest.
Yeah, and Paddy, I know that you need to go for a wedding planning meeting. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Having a meeting with the celebrant. Yep.
Well, typical jockey has a better offer, Matt, and he's left us and he's off.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, for having me on. Anyway, appreciate it. Hope the owners and connections and everyone a part of the team got something out of it. Anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Paddy.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. And obviously, Lockie, you'll have to answer a few of the questions that come in from the owners. But thanks, Paddy, and we'll see you there obviously Friday night. And I'm sure a few people will back fishing, so no pressure.
All right, cheers, guys. No, never any pressure.
See you, mate.
Yeah.
Cheers, Paddy.
Just let. All right, we might go to those questions now, Lockie. So we've just got a few. So Peter Stanley says, if you're in charge of racing for one day, what would be the first change to the rules you would make?
Ooh. I think I really like. Look, I since Dad started training, I've found that I've come from a different angle. Certainly the staff issue angle, and I've found that what Sydney's doing with their racing, and especially taking care of the grassroots and the people that actually put in the work, such as the strappers, is really good with the strappers bonus. And I don't know if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the strapper that won the Everest received $100,000 or so forth, which maybe divided up amongst the stable. I think that's a really good thing to do. I think that there's a lot of untold stories and people that go unnoticed at the lower levels, but they're just as important as me or Paddy or anyone. But I feel like the strappers need to be taken care of. I think we're going through trying times with COVID, and look, it's not an appealing job to do. Work with horses on the ground, like the hours and the hard work, and sometimes you get no reward. But I feel like that's something I'd probably do. I'd take care of the people that actually put in the work.
Yeah, and there's plenty of cash going around. So you look at the price of you look at the prize money, and you think, it'd be great to see just a little bit skimmed off that.
Yeah.
Those guys, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
Matt, obviously, just touching on that in the industry, horrific with the flooding in the Gambia. So thoughts out to everyone, all the farms that are suffering up there, and obviously from a stable perspective, if there's anything we can do to help, or anyone watching that needs help with any of that, we'd be more than happy to help.
Yeah, trying times, Corey. It's we think we got problems when we can't find races for horses, but people up on the farms in the Gambia got problems when they're trying to save the horses. So but one thing about the racing industry is, in trying times, the racing industry really comes to the forefront and they support each other. And, we offered our services to help out, and we're basically, in a long queue of people offering their services to help out. So everyone is very willing and helpful. And, whenever anyone is suffering or in trouble in the game, the racing industry always finds a way to help out, which is, really special to know.
Yeah. And Lockie, I'm not sure if you would have ridden a horse called Prince of Cairo, but Mike Bennett's just asking if you've ever ridden Prince of Cairo.
Like I said before, it's hard to tell if I've ridden it or not. I probably would have ridden it, let's be honest. But I'll make him a promise, and I'll make sure that Matt puts me on him next time I'm in the stable, and I'll get a feel of it, and I'll let him know. Matt,
you probably would know if Lockie has or not. He would on those. So
I reckon it sounds familiar, Prince of Cairo. I don't know.
Lockie might have worked it, but I don't think Lockie's ridden it in a race. So
definitely not.
We'll have to when he's doing some speed work or something like that. When he's back in, he's not in at the moment. He's having a little rest. So when he's back in it, then we can put Lockie on, and then we can he can give some feedback.
Lockie, Pete Stanley has another good question here. He says, do you believe a few jockeys ride too close together to each other in some races, and what do you think could be done to change this?
Look, I think it depends on which country you're riding. I know, Matt probably could explain this question a little bit better, being from South Africa, but when I had an opportunity to ride in France when I was an apprentice, and when I went over there, we watched a lot of the races, and I rode in a race there, and I found that the jockeys rode very loose, which was different for me because obviously in Melbourne we jump, we go quick, we pull up, and then we sprint. But yeah, look, the way we're educated as jockeys is to hold our ground, hug the turns, save as much possible ground as you can, and don't give another person an advantage. So look, I can answer that question in two respects. I feel like some jockeys, and this is something that my dad's reiterated to me, if you're too far up the horse's backside in front of you, sometimes you only get one option. And when that gap opens, you pretty much have to take it. But if you can come back a length or so and give yourself some room in front of you, sometimes a better option will come up. And that's something definitely I've found that's been really helpful for my riding last year.
Yeah. And just on riding and waiting for gaps, we haven't actually spoken about King Magnus, Matt. Obviously, Lachie rode in for the Cranbourne Cup, so it might be a nice one, Lachie, to tell us how you felt. That was a perfect example of waiting for a gap, and it came at the right time.
Yeah. No, look, he was a very good horse to me. It was a horse that I came through right from the bottom grades. I think I won like a 64 in him first, and then right up until obviously he won the listed race, I've been pretty much with him, other than when they've claimed or something. But yeah, he's a horse that I can sort of reiterate that coming back half a length and giving yourself options. And I've had that many sprays off my dad about this exact thing, being too close to a horse in front of you, and not only like risking, falling, but just limiting your options. And if you can come back at that extra length, it can really open up, different options for you. But that horse, King Magnus, yeah, like he's a horse that travels quite keen, puts himself in a winning spot, and the Cranbourne Cup couldn't have worked out, better for us. It was exactly what Robbie wanted to do with him, and the horse was prepared well.
And speaking of sprays from your dad, what's the biggest spray you've ever got from a trainer?
I've had some good ones. Look, I'd probably say my biggest spray was from Dan McCarthy, a trainer from Wangaratta. He told me to sit last and sort of wait till he straightened up. And I think I couldn't have done the opposite thing more. Like I think I took off, sat wide, hit the front, and it stopped. And he actually was laughing. He was that angry. So he actually tore shreds off me as I walked back to the eights. And I've actually had a spray off another trainer that I didn't even ride for in the race at Sandown. Shay Eden gave me a spray one day, and I rode for Mick Price, and I eyeballed the leader the whole way. And I think his was his favourite. And he actually gave me a spray the whole way back to the scales. And I didn't even ride for him. So I've had some good ones anyway.
I might just flick through some really quick ones. So your favourite jockey in Australia?
I really like Luke Curry. I've always said it. I feel like he's just an ultimate professional. He's a great family man. He's a big time rider. He pops up when the pressure's on, and I really can't remember him riding a bad race. He's just a really humble bloke, and I feel like I am more appealed to those kind of people, the more humbled people. But yeah, look, the riding race is so competitive. It's so hard to reel off my favourite rider. There's a lot that comes to mind when I think of it, but James McDonald, you go through his last 100 rides, there's not many that he would have ridden bad. He seems to get every inch out of a horse. And, especially seeing him ride Lagagnier that day at Flemington is very fond in the mind, because that was a horse that was extremely green. And somehow he managed to get that horse to still hit the line after not travelling the high up the straight and place. Like, it was an amazing effort. But yeah, there's a lot of good jockeys. If my name can be amongst them one day, I'll be really happy.
Yeah. And favourite jockey in the world, or is it the same answer?
Oh, very similar. I don't watch a lot of international racing, but I feel like the Australian riders are respected in the world ranks. It's probably a better option, better question for Matt, probably the international riders anyway.
Yeah. And are you a vocal rider yourself?
A vocal rider?
Yeah, when you're riding in a race, will you give someone a spray if they're in your way, or?
Oh, look, I wouldn't go out of my way to give someone a spray as much. I'd have to do something pretty bad. But look, yeah, obviously you've got to use your voice when it's needed. It can work against you sometimes. Some people can ride back on top of you if you let them know that you're there. So, but the riding ranks are pretty safe. I feel like everyone sort of looks out for each other, so it's pretty safe in Victoria anyway.
Yeah. And if Matt and Robbie said to you, you can sit on any horse in the stable next start, which horse would you choose?
I'd like to sit on Halvorsen this prep. I have ridden him. He probably lost his way a little bit last prep. I've ridden him in the Newmarket, but I just think the horse is begging for a Group 1 win. I know that Andy Mullion's his main rider, but he's a horse that I feel like he's just incredibly honest, and he's run very good in some good races, and he'd probably be a horse that I'd probably attract to riding anyway.
Yeah. And Paddy rode him this morning in the trial, Matt. So Lockie's waited for Paddy to leave and trying to steal his ride again.
Yeah, Paddy rode him this morning, and he trialled super, Corey. We really happy with the way he's going. But as Lockie said, Andrew Mallion's always been first choice for that horse, and then during times of COVID, it was difficult to get Andrew Mallion up, but now that he's a bit more free and able to move around, he'll be coming down to ride him during Spring Carnival.
Yeah. And Lockie, one horse in history, if you could sit on any of them.
Oh, probably Winks, I think.
Yeah.
I think Winks. I think she got herself out of some incredibly tough situations. It'd be hard to ride horses of that caliber though, because I think you need a great confidence and understanding of how good the horse is. I probably haven't come across a horse half as good as her, but I think it'd be an amazing feeling just to feel the raw power underneath you, especially when you're 8 lengths off them at 600. To be confident enough to take your time and let her down through her gears. But hopefully one day Matty will throw me a bone and put me on a fast one.
Yeah, so hopefully it's Frankie on dry ground.
Hopefully
exactly.
it's coming up in a couple of weeks.
We're all searching for our Winks.
And your first ever winner, Lockie. Who was your first ever winner?
My first ever winner was for Phil Sweeney. It was a horse called Tolstoy. I didn't even know I was riding till the day of the race. My boss Gerald, after track work, said you better get your stuff ready. You're riding today at Moloney, a place in like central New South Wales, dirt track. There was like sheep on the track. There's no outside fence. It was horrific, but I slaughtered it. I gave it a terrible ride, and it still won. But it's a good experience. I'd have to go back, hopefully as a spectator. But I've come a long way, I feel, in the short time I've been riding anyway.
Yeah. And Matt, here's one for you. Just a question here asking about the new 2-year-olds. And I know it's hard because a lot of them, at different stages of their progress. A lot of them are at the pre-trainers at the moment, split over 2 pre-trainers, but there are some in the yard at the moment. So any first impressions?
Yeah, always good, Corey. That's we're always optimistic, but in reality, they are looking like we've bought a really high quality bunch of yearlings once again. The 3-year-olds that we got, the 2-year-olds that are in the yard, they're all handpicked by myself and Robbie. So when we go to the sales and buy them, we buy them because we want to train them and we want to put a saddle on them in the morning and we want to look at them in the afternoons and work with them. And so they're really pleasing us, and what's more important is they've come through their first part of their education really well, and the ones that have come into the system, had a look around Cranbourne, have behaved themselves impeccably, done everything right, and we're probably about, we've had 1 2-year-old trialer so far. She trialed very well, Celestial Storm, but we're probably about 2 or 3 weeks away from having another whole bunch of 2-year-olds trial. So it's that time of the year where we're starting to, really get excited about the young ones.
Yeah, and there's still also, I know there's a couple of horses, Cortez, Queen of Moa, and then that are 3-year-olds that haven't made their first start yet, that are showing a fair bit in the yard now as well. Yeah. And I know, speaking of the Everest, GDK won the Everest, and we were very disappointed on debut when Artemis Prime finished 6 lengths behind GDK, but that's actually looking like it might be okay form now. Yeah,
well, in my experience, Corey, like working in a big yard like my old man's yard in South Africa, where we constantly had, Group 1 winning 3-year-olds, you often find the best 3-year-olds in your yard are the ones that come through a bit later on, and they almost surprise you, and they evolve. They're a bit of a diamond in the rough, and they seem to get better as they get a bit older. And sometimes these, like I'm saying, these late bloomers can really take off on you. And like you've mentioned, a few of those names, those horses have always shown us they have natural ability, but they might have just had a couple of growing niggles and growing pains and a bit immature. But we're very patient with the horses, and we're not going to be rushing them because we've taken our time to select them. And I think we still got a lot of really nice unraced 3-year-olds that we're going to have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, and I've got a few questions that are horse specific, but I won't put you guys on the spot with those. Sorry, guys. If you want to send those through to me, I'll get an update for you. But just on live, what I don't want to do is sort of focus on individual horses in case we don't. Lockie might not have sat on them or whatever it might be. But what have you got coming up this week, Lockie, other than the rides for us? Anything that the punters out there might be worth looking at?
Look, I got 4 or 5 rides on Wednesday. They're all hanging around the 20-1 mark, but they're all going to be competitive. I feel like Magic will land in a suitable race. We've finally drawn a barrier that we'd like, and he's a horse we certainly haven't got to the bottom of yet. But really looking forward to him. Haven't got a ride on Cox Plate Day yet, so it's hard to tell what I'll be riding there. But we'll just take it one day at a time. Obviously, really looking forward to the Spring Carnival at Flemington specifically. Got a couple of nice rides there. So, just also interested to obviously see the Geelong Classic. It's going to be a good watch. Obviously, 3 very similar horses going head to head, and really see who's the most promising 3-year-old stayer anyway.
Harry Williams has just said that Giga Kick was 20-1 on debut against our horse. So missed that. Are you doing trials at Moe tomorrow, Lockie?
Yeah, I am. Matt's going to send me through the list.
Is he on Kerensky by any chance, Matt?
Oh, we haven't decided jocks yet, Corey, but Lockie's trialing every single trial for us, so more than likely it will be.
So there's a good chance, yeah. And Matt, any questions for Lockie before we wrap up?
No, well, I think you've asked a lot of good questions there, Corey. But like for some people like myself, Lockie, that don't know much about your old man and his background, maybe just a bit of elaborate on his background, because you keep saying, your old man's an influence on your life. So obviously he was a jockey, but you can take it from there.
Look, my dad, I think I am a 4th or 5th generation jockey. My grandfather was a jockey, Albie, and he never rode a Group 1 winner, but he was quite a successful jockey. I think he won a couple of Andrew Ramsden's or something like that, Baggett handicaps. And anyway, Dad came through the ranks and was apprentice to John Marr. And I think he ended up winning 56 Group 1s. He rode some really nice horses like Let's Float, Maccabi Diva, Fields of Omar, Fairy King Prawn in Hong Kong. And his career took him to some great heights. And, Dad's recently started training horses because he's always had that fire in his belly. And it's been really good to watch, Matty, just to see how much of a difference it is seeing my dad give his opinion on top of a horse, and now he's putting all the work in behind the scenes. And I think it really made him realise how much effort the trainers and the staff do to prepare these horses. And I've been really enjoying being part of this. What's coming of it anyway. We've only got a small team, but it's really improving. But look, Dad's been a massive supporter of mine. He was very involved with Johnny Get Angry story. I broke my back last year, and he was good enough to ride the horse for me. Believe it or not, he rode him in his trials and gallops and really kept me updated. And he brings me to centre a lot. Obviously, I was a young kid when I was riding Johnny, and at times I feel like the pressure might get a little bit a hold of me, and you can make some rash decisions in big races. But he's always been one to just keep me calm and really prepare me well. I think if you're prepared well and you have a plan A, plan B, plan C, you can pretty much get it right. So, but he's good. He's straight to the point. there's no dance around the question. He'll give me his straight up opinion of whether I ride one good or bad, and I sort of just I bounced off him with some different ideas, and he actually was the one that indicated I should go and work for Robbie and Matt. I don't think Matt was actually a part of the team at the time, but he said to me, it might have been 3 years ago or 4 years ago, to really got to get involved with this stable, especially over the summer months. Robbie was having some really good summer months at the Valley and that, and it just happened that I got there, and I don't know if I was just after Matt or whatever, but it's been a really good journey since, and I'm really looking forward to the future anyway.
Yeah, and I've got a few questions that have come through since then. So I'll start with one, just an update from Will Setterino, just an update on any horses that are going to run over the 4-day carnival, Matt. So obviously you got Frankie in the Oaks, and then hopefully the 3 running on Wednesday, I assume.
Yeah, the funny thing is we spent a lot of time planning for that little week or window, but a lot could change in the next 2 weeks with regards to how many runners we're going to have. So a lot of them are going around on Wednesday, the 3 in the Geelong Classic. So obviously, depending on how they run, is whether they'll go on to the Derby or not. Magical Land, he's going to go to the Country Championship, hopefully, if he runs well on Wednesday. Fission running on Friday. If he runs well, he could be running Spring Carnival Week. Entremet also on the weekend. If she goes well, she can push on to the Spring Carnival Week. Then Halvorsen Child this morning. Frankie, we've already mentioned. Jockey, she ran on Saturday. There's a little race for him during Spring Carnival. The 2-year-old Celestial Storm trialing tomorrow. So I'm probably going to leave a couple out, but we've got a nice team heading towards Spring Carnival, and I'm pretty confident that we can reel a win or two off for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely looking promising. And then for you, Lockie, what are some weird things that jockeys do while they're waiting for their next race?
Geez, we're all very different. Look, there's some jockeys that sort of keep themselves busy, stretching. Sometimes we have a masseuse on get a massage, or I find a lot of jockeys eat and try and drink, boredom, and it's a really bad habit to get. I can sometimes say that I do it myself, but look, we have pretty good facilities in the jockeys' rooms, especially in the metropolitan area. We have spas, saunas. So I'll actually go and jump in a spa and lose weight, or even just relax in the spa during rides. But there's a lot of banter in the rooms. People probably don't see that, but there's a lot of funny people, funny jockeys. Mark Zara is very, very funny. He usually cracks up the boys, but yeah, a lot of banter, a lot of goss. It's good to be a fly on the wall sometimes anyway.
Yeah. And what's your mindset, from Craig Abernethy, what's your mindset when you're going into a race where you're against an overwhelming favourite like a Winx or a Nature Strip? Are you just trying to get close, or do you believe you can cause an upset?
Geez, probably depends on how good I think my chances are. But yeah, look, it's a hard question to answer because they were just
instructions as well.
Yeah, look, they're just incredibly good horses. You could try your best, but I just don't think you'd ever beat those horses just riding the way you want to ride your horse. I think you'd have to do something out of the ordinary, whether that's lead them up or take off, or I have no idea, try and box her in. But Winx overcame that in 30 starts every time, and Black Caviar, they never even got close to her. So yeah, look, it's there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, and certainly when there's a raging favourite like that, the team also has to discuss their choices. But sometimes I find when you're trying to beat a favourite like that, it can bring your horse undone, and you can fall into that trying to get that horse beat, and you actually get yourself beat. So better off probably just riding your horse into its rhythm and its comfort zone.
Well, classic examples the Everest, because Nature Strip looked like a Nature Strip benefit race, but when the gates opened, they all kept him wide. They went really fast, and someone like Craig Williams didn't ride to beat the favourite. He just rode his horse to run a good race and look good, finish strong, and he ended up coming over the top of them and claiming victory. So the good horses can be beaten, and if you like he says, but if you stretch your horse, like if you look at Eduardo, probably did a bit much trying to beat Nature Strip ended up costing him running very well,
He came last in the end, so
Yeah.
that probably set the race up for somebody else. So
Yeah.
100%.
was similar with that Phillies race of ours on Saturday, actually, the first race, where the first two ended up finishing last and second last because they burn each other out trying to win it, obviously, and trying something different.
Yeah.
Grant Carstens, Matt, this is one I can answer. He's just asking, with videos, is it possible to get any videos of the horses doing fast work? Obviously, so Grant, just with that, I actually went in Friday morning at 5 with the intentions of doing that, but the way it's set up at Cranbourne, and because there's so many horses on the track and that sort of thing, and there has been previously and a couple of years ago some accidents there on course, it's kind of frowned upon for us to get out onto the tracks or anything like that. So to actually get any good footage of fast work is very difficult from our perspective. But what we have been doing is a couple of our track riders have been getting a jockey's view. So we have been getting those. I know I've just had a look now at what you're in, but obviously we can't do that every day for every horse, but we are trying to get as much of that as we can and get that out to the owners. And when they're on the back sand track, we can get footage of them there as well. So it just depends on their training program. But as your horses work more, you'll get more different, a bit more of a variety of updates. Would that be fair, Matt? Have I covered everything there?
Yeah, it is a challenge. Like, it's not like the Newmarket gallops where you can stand right next to the gallop safely and video the horses coming past. Unfortunately, the way the track's designed, there's a lot of tracks inside of each other and they're all in use every morning. So it's very hard to stand next to the rail because you're standing on another track where horses are galloping on. And then the tracks are quite far away from the sides. So the footage is not of good quality, but we have been investigating getting some cameras, standing cameras that we can set up on our balcony to try and get some footage, because I do myself like footage of the gallops as well, but it has been something that's been a challenge at Cranbourne specifically. So that's why we try and do things like the GoPro footage of them on the treadmill, in the sand rolls, out the back. So we try and change it up as much as we can. But we are investigating some standing cameras to try and get some footage of them galloping.
Yeah, and I think it also, I know from experience that, for example, horses that gallop in Ballarat up the hill track, they have a specific spot where they can film the horses gallop up past the tower. But a complaint, I know from their trainers, the complaint that they've been getting from their owners is that it's the same bit of footage all the time. So they have different challenges at each track, and probably, we're quite lucky, but the one thing that we're not lucky with is having access to get good footage, and we're working on it. So good question though, really good question. And Grant, also, and for all owners, if you ever want anything on your horse or extra stuff, always message me, and when I am at the stables, I'll make a concerted effort to try and get you as much footage as we can of your horse, because we do try and get as much as we can, but there's a lot of work that goes in. And ultimately for Matt and Robbie, we want to make sure they're focused on the horses and training them for us, so I can fill in the gaps. And last one, Lockie, do you remember your dad's last Group 1 winner? And that's John Hyman. So I'm guessing he might have had something.
Oh, yeah. Rostover.
There you go.
Definitely Rostover. He came close in 2016 with On the Star and the Guineas. But, no, definitely remember Rostover. I don't know if John knows this, but I actually did Rostover's box about, what's that? 13 years ago. When I was a kid, I went with Dad to Trackworks for a week or two and was actually doing box every now and then. So
there you go. Good memory. You passed the test. Matt, just a quick one. We've got I won't spend too much time on it, but we've got a Justify colt we bought at the Ready to Run. So if you want to just say what you liked about him in the gallop, and they can check online if they want.
Yeah, well, obviously, when we buy it off the breeze up sale, the most important thing is we like the way the horse actually breezes up. So this horse looked nice and strong in his action and really sharp and fast. And when we looked at him as a physical, he's a beautiful physical, very, very, very strong, typical Justify horse. So we're really excited about him. We managed to get him for a good price as well. and the Justifies. There seems to be a bit of a rap on them in America and over here. So exciting, get involved. It's a nice mid-year purchase, and I love the Breeze Up sales. I've purchased my own personal shares in the last 2 previous years, Breeze Up sales, and I'll be doing again this year because you don't have to wait too long for the horses to hit the track. So they've done their breaking in process. They know how to breeze up. So they're pretty forward and sharp, and they know what racing life's all about.
Yeah, and they've skipped a bit of, they've been pre-trained, they've been broken in, they're ready to go. And Lockie, your man Luke Nolan aboard there in that clip.
No, Tommy's a good rider. Good rider. So I'm surprised he's doing Breeze Up. So it's pretty game. But anyway, it's good to know that we got one of them anyway.
I think it's his dad's consignment. So.
Oh, there we go.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining. Lockie, been a pleasure. You've been really good, both yourself and Paddy. Hopefully, it's given a lot of insight to those that have followed. So thanks very much for joining us.
No worries, guys.
And
Yeah,
Matt,
thank you, Lockie.
All good, Matty. I'll see you tomorrow.
Beautiful.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.